Let's talk about one of the most audacious, deadly, and just plain bonkers engineering projects in all of human history. We're talking about the quest to literally slice a continent in two, all just to save a little time on a boat trip. This, my friends, is the incredible story of the Panama Canal.
I mean, seriously, just try to picture it. What could possibly be crazier than deciding to dig a 50-mile-long ditch straight through a dense tropical rainforest? The sheer scale is almost impossible to wrap your head around. But you know what? Turns out, the ditch itself wasn't even the craziest part of the plan.
Because this wasn't just any jungle. Oh no. This was the Isthmus of Panama. It has a literal spine of mountains running through it, torrential rains that can turn a calm river into a raging flood in minutes, constant mudslides, and, swarms and swarms of mosquitoes carrying deadly yellow fever and malaria. This wasn't just a construction project. It was an all-out war against nature itself.
So you have to ask yourself, why on earth would anyone even attempt this? Well, the answer, like it often is, really just boils down to two things: time and money.
You see, before the canal, if you were on a ship going from, say, New York to San Francisco, you had to go all the way down and around the treacherous tip of South America. That's an extra 8,000 miles. It added weeks, sometimes months, to the trip. A canal would be a total game changer for global trade. The dream was huge, but the reality? Well, the reality was a complete nightmare.
So who was the first nation to seriously throw its hat in the ring? That would be France. And they came into this thing with a whole lot of confidence and a plan that was, to put it mildly, catastrophically bad.
The man leading the charge was Ferdinand de Lesseps. You have to understand, this guy was basically the rock star engineer of his day. He had just pulled off the impossible by building the Suez Canal, and he was an international superstar. He figured, Panama? That'll be a piece of cake. He was very, very wrong.
The arrogance of the French plan is just astounding. See, the Suez Canal is basically a long trench dug through flat, sandy desert. So de Lesseps figured, hey, let's just do the exact same thing in Panama. We'll dig a trench from one ocean to the other, all at sea level. No big deal. He completely ignored the mountains, the flooding Chagres River, the mud. Basically, he ignored reality.
And the price for that hubris was paid in human lives. It was staggering. During the 9 years the French were there, an estimated 22,000 workers died. That's over 2,000 people a year, most of them from yellow fever and malaria. At its worst, people were dying at a rate of over 200 a month.
And the financial cost? Just as devastating. The project absolutely burned through money, something like $10 billion in today's dollars, before it went completely belly up. It wiped out the life savings of about 800,000 ordinary French investors.
By 1889, the whole thing collapsed. All that death, all that money, and what did they have to show for it? Nothing. Just a few miles of a trench that the jungle was already swallowing back up. It was one of the biggest financial and engineering disasters of the entire century.
But a dream this big doesn't just die. It just crossed the Atlantic. America, led by the famously assertive President Teddy Roosevelt, decided it was their turn. But first, they had to actually get their hands on the land.
So, at the time, Panama was actually a province of Colombia. The U.S. offered Colombia a deal for the rights to the land, but Colombia's Congress said no. They felt the terms were unfair. Now, Teddy Roosevelt was not a man who took no for an answer. He decided on a, let's call it a more direct approach.
And the timeline here is just wild. You can't make this up. On November 2nd, 1903, U.S. warships just so happened to show up and block Colombia from sending any troops. The very next day, a revolution conveniently breaks out and Panama declares independence. And just 3 days after that, the United States officially recognizes the brand new nation of Panama. What a coincidence, right?
Roosevelt himself wasn't exactly shy about it. Years later, he pretty much bragged, and I'm quoting here, "I took the isthmus, started the canal, and then left Congress not to debate the canal, but to debate me." Yeah, that was some classic gunboat diplomacy.
Okay, so the U.S. now has its canal zone. But to avoid repeating France's spectacular failure, they had to solve two massive problems. First, the diseases that were killing everybody. And second, that fundamentally flawed engineering plan.
First up, the bugs. The chief sanitation officer, a man named Colonel William Gorgas, knew the real enemy wasn't the mud, it was the mosquito. So he launched an all-out war. His teams fumigated every single building. They drained swamps, they sprayed oil on any standing water to kill the larvae, they put up window screens,
It was a total, systematic assault. And you know what? It worked. Within 2 years, yellow fever was basically gone from the canal zone.
Next, the bad engineering. The new chief engineer, a guy named John Frank Stevens, took one look at that French sea level plan and basically declared it garbage. And this, right here, was the turning point. Instead of fighting the landscape like the French did, Stevens decided to work with it. His stroke of genius was this: dam the wild Chagres River, create a giant artificial lake, then use a series of massive locks to lift ships up to the lake, let them sail across, and then lower them back down on the other side. He wasn't going to dig through the mountain. He was going to build a staircase of water right over it.
So, with the diseases under control and a brilliant new plan in place, all that was left was the small matter of actually digging the thing. This final phase was just going to be a brute force assault on the earth. To oversee this final push, Roosevelt brought in an army man, Major George Washington Goethals. He ran the project like a military operation. But his real talent wasn't just discipline, it was psychology. He started a newspaper to kill rumors, he paid workers in gold, and he had an open-door policy for any worker with a problem. He managed to turn this demoralized, beaten-down workforce into a truly dedicated army.
And the absolute heart of the challenge was the Culebra Cut, this 9-mile channel they had to carve through the mountains. The work was just soul-crushing. For every cubic yard of dirt they dug out, the unstable soil and the constant rain meant that half a yard of mud would just slide right back in. It was this relentless, uphill battle against gravity itself.
The sheer scale of what they finally built it's mind-boggling. They built what was, at the time, the world's largest dam. They created the world's largest man-made lake. The gates for the locks were as tall as an 11-story building. Over 100 steam shovels were working around the clock, digging up enough dirt and rock to literally bury the island of Manhattan. It was just unbelievable.
And then finally, after a decade of American effort, built on the ruins of that French failure, it was done. On that day in August 1914, a cargo ship, the SS Ancon, sailed from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The continent was officially broken, and the world shipping lanes were changed forever.
But its legacy is complicated. It's considered one of the 7 wonders of the modern world, an incredible testament to what we can achieve. But it was also born from some pretty shady political maneuvering and built on the graves of tens of thousands of workers. So, I'll leave you with this question. Is this magnificent, world-altering canal ultimately a triumph of human ingenuity, or is it a chilling display of human arrogance?